Happy New Year. That was really awful.
What was that? You skipped one.
You never say 1 and Happy New Year. You go 5, 4, 3, 2, Happy New Year. Because 1, then it's not the New Year. I mean, it is, but like then you're late. You're a whole second late on New Year.
I feel like this feeds into our earlier discussion about how there's no 0 year.
Well, remember, the Romans didn't have 0 in their numbers, too.
So
Something's wrong with them.
Well, yeah.
And I'm Italian. I could say that. Oh, my grandmother's gonna listen to this.
I like. It looks like you're trying to cower away from me, Olivia.
No, don't touch me and we'll be fine. I swear.
Are you sure you want me next to Olivia?
Yeah, who did this?
we both did.
Because it's more
naturally.
fun.
All right, Liv, introduce us. Or you introduce...
Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Well, first off, welcome to Called to the Table. We are a group of Christ-centered goofballs tackling hard topics with our humorous selves. I'm Olivia, and I am the social media leader. I don't like saying director. It feels weird.
I mean, you do direct it, though.
I do direct the social media, but I like leader. It's less intimidating.
I'm John. I'm, at this moment, just a personality.
I don't know about it.
Are you though? You set yourself up for that
Yeah.
one.
You did. You majorly set yourself up for that one.
How dare you?
I'm
How
Jordan.
dare you?
I'm Jordan, and I'm the communications and
Brains.
of the operation.
So,
Okay.
apparently you don't need any brains for editing, because that's what I do.
Well, say who you are, though.
Oh, I'm Caroline. Hi. Shut up! I know what you're thinking, shut up.
I wasn't thinking anything. I thought it was really funny. I was just like, dude, that was pretty lit. That was funny.
Now, only if that was planned.
Oh, that was so dope.
This is why we don't script what we write. Right here.
Yeah.
All right, so today we are going to talk
We're
about...
like, whose line is it anyway of Christianity?
Oh my gosh. That's what we should
Oh,
have
I'm
been.
now editing our Instagram, and it's going to be what we say. We're the who's line. That's going to be our next post.
All right, so topic for today is something we're all very passionate about, which is arts in the Christian field. And first question I'm posing to everybody is kind of what do you feel like is the overall feeling of performance and visual arts in the Christian community right now? We'll go to Liv because she's very passionate about this one.
Let's just go around the circle, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good.
When
idea.
you say performing a visual, is that encompassing all, or is that encompassing just like
All.
dance, acting?
Everything.
I would say everything.
Everything?
Anything, yeah.
So what is my overall feeling? Do you really want to start with me?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you.
Well,
the
no, what
dancer-
is the overall feeling? Like, what do you feel like is the kind of unanimous feeling or
Gotcha.
kind of, yeah.
Gotcha.
Not your overall feeling. I know your overall feeling.
I have,
Well, they don't know.
Very-
That's why we're telling
and
them.
I don't want that to sound like I have overall negative feelings. I just have overall feelings about Christianity and art and whatnot. But I think the overall feeling is underappreciated. I think that if I was to sum up in like just a few words, I think Christianity in the art sense, performance and visual, I think it's underappreciated, and I think we have a negative viewpoint. If you're not in it, I think there's an overall negative.
John, stop clicking your pen. Thank you.
John, stop clicking your pen. It's being picked up on the microphone. And it's interrupting me.
You need to be interrupted more often.
Yeah, I think if we compare it to the secular sense, it has a negative outlook that it's a little bit less structured and a little bit less professional. That's my short opinion.
As me and you were talking about Jordan the other night, we were talking about how we just seem like it always gets kidified.
Yep, it's a kid thing.
Good point.
It gets kidified. And
Immature.
people disassociate a lot of things. Like we were talking about how the company that did Facing the Giants and eventually went up to Courageous, you know, how that people don't necessarily view as within the church, even though it is a very Christian company.
It's a church that did it.
Yeah. Where Olivia, as you know, through Christian dance companies, it's very, when they are going for more adult things, the church itself doesn't necessarily view that as part of the church.
Exactly. Which I can go on and on, but I know we want to.
I mean, I'm just going off of what John said, which is that it typically is viewed as it needs to be family friendly, and I think the Bible in general has gotten turned into this where it's, you know, been kidified or needs to be family friendly. Y'all, the Bible is not family friendly. Hate to tell you. There's a whole book in the Bible that, like, was not to be read by boys, like Jewish boys, until they were of age because it was so sexually explicit.
Which was 13, and even then I don't think
that's
the right age.
So, just saying, it does
different
not...
culture back then.
I know.
Drama and I feel like performance and stuff needs to be... I feel like the general view is that it's for kids and it needs to be family friendly, and I don't necessarily agree with that. So I feel like that's the general view right now, is that it... Yeah, but that's what I view like. What about you, Caroline?
So I just said that it really depends on the medium as far as how it's accepted. Drawing, writing, and music, those things have always been part of the church. I mean, particularly for, I don't want to say the early church, but like Catholicism, I mean, they mostly reached the people through art and music. And so those have always been very big things that were, and of course, writing later on. I mean, of course, the Bible is writing. How are we not going to accept writing, you know? But as far as, like, movies go, that's a hard maybe. And then dance and anything else that's sort of outside the traditional scene, that tends to be a big flat no. As I know, Olivia is nodding her head vigorously.
As if y'all could see that right now.
Now, you're supposed to be able to see a podcast. Don't you know that?
Jeez, John.
This is tiny camera. What you talking about?
Unless you're on Apple Podcasts, in which they don't show videos on there ever.
So basically, we all agree on the fact that there is some resistance by the church, and still to allow performance. And I feel like visual art is less a little bit, but I mean definitely performance art has been resisted. Where do y'all think that?
Can I pipe in?
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think it came from the just the secular, and I use secular very timidly because I don't necessarily like to classify Christian as secular, but just for the sake of communication. The secular side of things, making things a little bit more sensual, a little bit more promiscuous, making things a little bit more demonic in that sense. And I mean, if you look at acting movies, take my background out of it, we have movies and things that go harshly against Christianity, which can quickly turn churches away, because if that's the amount of sin that we can enter in, how do we combat that? Well, we do it very immature, childish way, teach it to them young, but then not accept it as an older thing, and you take dance as the same way. You look at So You Think You Can Dance, you look at these big companies that are doing pieces that look promiscuous, that look really risque, that look really off. Churches are going to turn away from anything that's what their mindset is, and once you get a particular mindset, you're going to stick to that, you know, and it's going to become generational. Every generation is going to look at it, you know. Way back in the biblical days, dancing was something, and you know, I know this is a politically incorrect term as of right now, but dancing was something the gypsies did, and right now gypsy is not a socially accepted term, so I apologize if I offend anyone, but
Romani. We can just use Romani if we want.
It was utilized as a way to lure men, and so the church saw that as, well, we shouldn't be dancing. But the Bible also says, you know, worship him with dance. So I think that's where we kind of fall short, is we get a narrow-minded viewpoint on mature arts can look like, because we're scared of what that could turn into.
And are you going to stop?
I was going to pipe in and say, would you think that there might be a possibility of ego in this? You know, if...
Absolutely.
No duh.
Absolutely. 100%.
Because you feel like you're going to be chained with not being able to do certain things, which is going to get as much of a crowd.
Absolutely. Yeah, I could totally say that me personally, my ego gets in the way when it comes to this because I've been in both the secular and the non-secular dance field. And I do see a difference in attendance. If you look at certain shows that I've done that were outside of the Christian field as far as like college and freelancing goes, massive turnouts. And then you put Christian Dance Company on top of it, you get half, if not a quarter, of the turnout. It becomes just, and this is no offense I love my job and I love what I do and I'm passionate about how I teach and where I teach, but you get mostly mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. Mm-hmm. You don't get the, so-and-so company is doing a show. Like when I was out at Odd AM, we'd have half a theater filled. But we slap another company's name on it. We did Odd AM plus Met Dance Company. We had a great deal more because the Met Dance Company wasn't a Christian company. And more people were excited to see the Met, and then we happened to be the showrunner. You know what I mean? It's just, I definitely think an ego has to do with that. But I also think, like, why is the Christian dance world, why do they have a lower attendance rate?
Because I think it's family friendly. I think everything, I mean...
That's the viewpoint of it, at least.
Yeah, it's a family thing. It's like, you wouldn't take... I wouldn't take a 5-year-old to go see a very accurate depiction of Romeo and Juliet. And I'm looking at it in the sense of
Absolutely.
Drama because that's my background.
Absolutely.
But I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't take a 5-year-old to go see a very well done, accurate depiction of that show. We have but yet and we all accept that with secular stuff that there's an age limit for it. I feel like with performance art, with drama, and with dance, you could do some very hardcore, as I know you've tried to do and you have done, very hardcore dancing that, again, you wouldn't take a 5-year-old. They wouldn't understand the message for it.
Right.
But yet, with the Christian field, we don't have that same mindset. We don't have the mindset that there can be different age limits to stuff.
Right.
It all has to be family friendly, and that has now played effect on, like what you said, of people not attending stuff.
Right.
It's like, well, we're not going to go to this because maybe mom and dad want a date night. Well, they're not going to go to something that's, kid friendly or whatever.
Right.
They want to go to something that they can go as adults.
They want to go to Atlanta Ballet and see a rendition of Swan Lake, which is coming up this spring. And yes.
Are you in it?
No. Aww. I don't do ballet anymore. Anyway, yes, I agree with what you're saying, and we can translate that into the church, is the church doesn't want to welcome in certain pieces because they're timid on the message that it might get across.
Mm-hmm.
I would hesitate to offer up a piece that I'm creating now on human trafficking to a church because I know that while my attack point is teens, I know a lot of parents aren't going to want their kids to see that, where it's a real thing. The piece that I'm trying to create right now has this grooming background to it. We see a lot of human trafficking being about grab and snatch. Mm-hmm. We don't see the grooming aspect of it. So I'm trying to open people's eyes to that, but I know it's not going to be widely accepted, and a lot of people aren't going to want to come and see it because parents are trying to shelter their children to this truth that the apps that they're on and the social medias that they're on have a grooming effect. This TikTok app that I am absolutely appalled by. I personally created one with an 18 and under restriction on it. It still had very, very explicit videos come up on my thing. And I'm like, my brother's seeing this. My students might be seeing this. It's ridiculous. It's grooming kids to be neutral and watered down to sex. Yeah. And that's how grooming starts. So, but I know, going back to my original, I know churches aren't going to want to have that at the pulpit because that's a topic that most parents are probably going to be like, I don't want my kids to know about that yet. Mm-hmm. Which is an adult type piece that I'm trying to create with a Christian background, and it's like, how do we merge the two together? By doing stuff like this. It's saying too bad. gonna do it anyways.
I would also like to point out, a little bit into history here. The Puritans, when they took over...
John, I literally have the same thing on my page.
Oh my gosh.
The Puritans, when they took over England and kicked the monarchy out, outlawed everything from music to theaters to pure, and wanted only the Bible in their
Am I
church.
the only one who didn't write down notes? I just mentally kept things in my brain. I was like, that's what I want to talk about.
That's okay though.
That's how I roll.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the one sound effect we need is whenever John pats Olivia on the head.
Or Jordan. Because I pat Jordan on the head too.
I did, yeah.
Do not pat me on the head. I'm not a kid.
You didn't say anything until just now after I patted you on the head.
Yeah, because I don't like it when you pat me on the head. It usually makes me like turtle up.
No, I mean, I wrote the same thing. Because I did a little research, because it's like, I know they didn't completely ban music, but like, I was thinking when they got here, when they started over, when they had their own colony, their own, we have free reign of this place, we make it exactly as how we want it, that in an effort to get away from all of the old, aka popish influences, they basically threw out the baby with the bathwater with a whole lot of other stuff. Like music, the music that they had was a cappella and in unison, which is not bad, but they're like, harmony. The Catholic Church had harmony. Oh my word, that must mean it's evil or something like that. So they wanted to deviate from everything, including art and older forms of expression. And because that's kind of where America started, we've had to sort of push our way from that place of, I don't want to say repression, but you know what I mean. We've had to go uphill from that.
See, and I did a historical kind of research on it as well, but again, because my background is drama, that was where my eye kind of instantly led, and what I found was it actually was a very, like, hygiene thing for dramatics. The church didn't want people going to theaters and stuff like that and seeing performances because they thought it was spreading the plague. A lot of it, they were...
I
mean... So funny.
I get this. People in close quarters.
Yeah, that was the thought.
No, I totally get it. I just think it's funny.
But, I mean, that was
But they want you to pack out the church.
Yeah. That's why I think it's funny.
But no, I mean,
the plague can't get you in the church, John. Don't you know that? Germs don't exist inside of the church.
But no, I mean, that was a big thing for them, was that they thought that, especially at the time when the plague was so rampant, that's what they thought. They thought that people going to see plays, it was, again, like you said, Caroline, it was close quarters, and it was, there's germs going around, and they thought that was, and then what that turned into was, as they kind of realized that wasn't necessarily the cause of the plague or whatever, then the church didn't like the fact that there were men playing women. And it became more of a thing of like, well, we don't want women on the stage because they have, no rights or anything at that time. They're women.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't want these men up there, playing women. Yeah, cross-dressing, playing women parts. And so that started in the drama field. That started kind of the push for the church against performance art of, we obviously are not going to let women do it, but we don't want the men... We want men playing men parts, but we also don't want them showing anything that's homosexual. We don't want them cross-dressing.
Absolutely.
We don't want them... So it was a contradiction.
Well, if you want to come at it from a dance aspect, ballet...
How surprising.
That's what I know, so that's what I'm going to talk about. Historically speaking, ballet was, in its original sense, was a character, quote-unquote, character dance when a lot of people like to say King Louis, right?
The Sun King, Louis XIV?
Yeah. No. King George? I don't remember that part. Catherine de' Medici from Italy was the original person who brought ballet to England. Like, let's all clarify this. She was a huge art advocate.
I'm Italian also, so I know ballet.
Well, I did a huge paper on
she's
Catherine de' Medici, and I think she's she's got her issues in history, but one of the things she brought was a lot of arts to England. She was a huge advocate for music and acting and dancing. But then you go forward a little bit more, and when ballet became codified, and when you have this actual codification of the dance, women were not supposed to show their ankles. So how do we combat a beautiful art form without showing your ankles. Well, they had romantic tutus. The tulle went all the way down to the ankles. Everything was very low to the ground. You were not allowed to have your legs high. And you see this gradual, like, change in ballet where now we have the, you know, platter tutus. We have the legs up to your ears.
Mm-hmm.
But before that was unaccepted. And that was because of the church. The church was like, women should not show their ankles. Okay, we won't do that. We'll do 45-degree angles with our legs. We'll do low tendus, which I know not a lot of people, if you know, unless you're a dancer, you're not going to understand some of these terms. I understand.
Then explain.
A tendu is a pointed foot attached to the floor. It's to stretch. So it's a pressure point where you push through the floor and extend your foot all the way out without lifting it off the floor. Women would go up 45 degrees from the ground, and that would be the height because nothing would lift up any higher. Well, as you progress, you know, more people were understanding and accepting of, oh, this is a beautiful art form. It's not suggestive. You know, we're not getting a sensual look from this. We'll lift the tutus up to the calf, and we can do 90 degrees. And then the sleeves started to disappear. And then you had, oh, we can do platter tutus and partnering. Now a man is touching a woman. We're allowed to have them on the shoulder. We're allowed to do all this partnering stuff. So you get this codification that just kind of gradually goes up. It comes to America. Well, Martha Graham is like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to kind of change the game up a little bit and create modern dance. Booed on every stage because it was seen as a sensual, grounded, sinful act on stage. So she did it on the streets. It took her years to get that taken care of and for the church to be like, oh, okay, she's creating good content. She's creating, you know, good, beautiful works. And she's creating wholesome works because a lot of her imagery is based off of Catholic paintings. And so they were able to put those two and two together. But then as we get into the 21st century, we get into what we're doing. Oh, modern is too sensual. Modern is too, you know, sinful because we now have Paul Taylor who's doing people naked on stage. We have Isadora Duncan who is doing very similar things, very suggestive movements. You have Ohad Naharin who's doing the Gaga technique where it looks like you're gyrating on stage. Some things are beautiful. Ohad Naharin has a fantastic viewpoint. If it were taken in a Christian sense, it would the way that he views his dancing would be healing, but he has a very demonic presence about him, so I don't really, you know, go too far into that. But if it was brought to a Christian light, it would be different. But now we're having to combat this too. So I'm saying, you know, in agreement, like the church has so much control over what they do and what they don't do. And in acting, I can see where it you know, it promotes murder. You know, a lot of these things promote murder and violence. And I mean, go back to Romeo and Juliet. Mm-hmm. You know, you got two teenagers in love for 24 hours, maybe 48, who knows.
Get married,
and there's so much killing in between, and then they die. Like, spoiler alert, if you haven't read it.
They commit suicide.
Like, that promotes suicide. And I can see where the church would fight against that. But why can't we merge the two together? Teach them wholesomely, and also teach them the truth behind it. That was a long-winded explanation, I'm sorry. But I was trying to relate.
Okay, so everybody, Olivia just nerded out on
Hardcore just nerded out.
We're all gonna have our time to nerd out on our things that we understand. You just got presented with Olivia's nerd out on ballet, on the history of ballet.
Thank you for joining us for Olivia's nerd out on ballet.
Yeah.
We already talked about how this really should be called Olivia's Rants with Friends.
Oh my gosh, no!
Anyways.
I just don't have I don't mind talking about things I'm passionate about, and I don't beat around the bush, and just say how it is.
I would also, going back to a more historical thing,
Don't
a lot
smack
of
your lips, it's gross.
Too bad. Anyways, a lot of hymnals that we know today, they're the wholesome hymnals.
Hymns, not hymnals. Hymnals are their books.
Okay. Well, the hymnals themselves are also wholesome. Anyway.
Got a point.
A lot of the hymns, their structure came from pub songs.
Yeah.
Because everybody knew the pub songs, they knew the beat. Well, all you gotta do is use the same beat, but use different words.
And who was the one who started that? Martin Luther.
Yeah. Yup.
Where are the Germans? They're in the pub houses. We take the pub songs, put good words to them. Yay!
I mean,
Jawohl! I'm sorry, the only reason that I'm being that stupid about Germans is because John is German, and it really
Well,
is funny
heritage.
I was about to
German
say John's
heritage.
grandparent or
Great grandparents came from Germany.
And we tease
Right
him about
before
it all
Hitler
the time.
took
That's
power.
the only reason. Yeah, we're not okay with that bit, but you know.
Yeah, no.
Whatever.
They got out. That's the important thing.
Yes.
Olivia is Italian, John is German.
I'm
Jordan
Irish.
is something.
Allies.
I'm Irish.
I don't know, I'm something.
I'm Irish.
I have a wee bit of Welsh in there.
I exist.
Same. That's where Jenkins comes from.
Yeah.
Jinkies.
My mom's a Llewellyn.
Hey everyone! Thanks again for listening to Called to the Table. Here's where we would tell you about our awesome sponsors. Unfortunately, we have no sponsors right now. If you would like to become a sponsor and have us brag about your awesome products, please contact us at calledtothetable@gmail.com. I also want to tell you that we are in the process of getting our podcast episodes available on Anchor, which will also make them available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. So be on the lookout for those. That's all from me right now. Thanks again for listening. Bye.
Alright, so returning to what we were talking about, we keep talking about how there's a resistance in the church. So I guess the next thing to talk about is do they have a right to have this resistance? Is it actually Bible based? Is performance and visual arts Bible based? Who wants to start?
I mean, I got my notes, but like...
I mean, I would start off with saying everything done in the Old Testament for the temple, for the ark, for all...
How are we writing the same things, John?
Because you and me think on a historical level.
Yeah. I was
Anyways,
going to say, Jordan, I'm sorry. John and I are actually spiritually married.
Yes, I know. I've accepted this.
we
John's
just
married
blew
to
Olivia's
everybody
mind.
but me.
John and I are not married.
No, we fight too much.
That's true. You two would kill each other.
It'd be a fun fight to the death.
Anyway,
As I was saying,
As you were saying.
but I mean, they had stone cutters to make designs and make beautiful pillars. They had goldsmiths, silversmiths. They had carpenters make elegant pieces for all this stuff. But yet, somehow, we're not allowed to do that now?
right. I think biblically, we see multiple times in the Bible, about singing, about musicians, about dancing. Like there's multiple places in the New Testament where people worshipped, and that was a form of worship. Do I think churches have a right to have skepticism as far as the arts? Yes. I do think they have a right to be skeptic about the arts. We as a population haven't really given Christian dance a chance, and we've made that a point in the first half, but the secular world really hasn't given arts a good name on the other side of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like we haven't really found that happy balance of integrity and excellence. We want to try to find that healthy balance, and we want to try to find that right stance, but we're humans, so we're gonna mess it up. We're humans, we're imperfect, so there's gonna be flaws on either side. It's how do we push forward in those flaws and work towards that excellence with integrity. But I do think the church, playing devil's advocate here, I do think the church has a right to have some skepticism as far as the arts.
Playing devil's advocate, but advocating for the church.
Okay,
Good job. Good job, Olivia.
You know what I'm trying to say here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's that narrow-mindedness that has not given us the opportunity to redo our viewpoint. We've narrowed our sights so much that we don't accept change in, but the change is what's going to make things better. It's what's going to actually enhance the church. So, yes, but biblically, no. I think we should be allowed to do these things. I think the church should allow dancing, and I know there's still churches out there that don't allow dancing. I think that's wrong, because in the Bible, it clearly states several different times, and they danced.
Well, and a big time that they danced, this was where my mind instantly went to when I was doing research on this, was when Jesus came into Jerusalem for Passover right before he died. There was dancing and singing in the streets, exalting his coming in.
Exactly.
And he engulfs it. He doesn't sit there and get onto them. He doesn't sit there and get mad at them. He welcomes it and he encourages it. So if the Lord Jesus was okay with it,
right,
in the sense of it praising him, now I think obviously if there had been dancers out there that were, let's not say specific things, but we're doing things that were more secular, I think that would have been, more of a hurtful thing on him.
Absolutely.
But as far as dancing and praising him, he was okay with that.
Absolutely.
And so why then does the church get to sit there and be like, well, when you're in church, if you're moved, you're not allowed to dance because Jesus encouraged it.
Absolutely.
So that was my thing.
Absolutely.
And this is something on a personal note. There is somebody I used to go to church with that for the longest time I thought he was just extremely weird by how he was dancing in the church. But once I got to know him, it was very much a different thing. He suffered from some sort of brain problem where growths in his brain.
Yeah.
And they had scans, and then they were going to have him come in for surgery the next day. The next day they scanned again, so they knew what they were going to, operate on, and it was all gone.
Yeah.
And his viewpoint is, I'm going to worship with every last bit of my body for the rest of my life. Well,
absolutely.
When he told me that, I literally sat there and thought to myself, who am I?
Right.
Who am I to say you're doing it for the wrong reason?
Right.
I gotta have that faith and that trust that you're doing it for the right reason. Now, absolutely. I might need to go over there and ask you, because, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking your intentions.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, is him praising the Lord that way a good reason for me not to be praising the Lord in my way?
Right.
That's definitely something we're just avid listeners. That's something we're going to continue to talk about because we have discussed before this, it's not necessarily the church policing people, but what different people believe is appropriate within the church,
right.
And how sometimes we worry that other self-expression might be because of one reason or another, and we will continue to talk about that. I just wanted to point that out.
Well, at the end of the day, the church is just made up of a bunch of people where a whole bunch of individuals get together.
Right. Well, and my question, and it's more of a rhetorical kind of, I don't know if anyone really knows the answer, but we have these churches that do contemporary services.
Mm-hmm.
And they play groups like Bethel, and they play groups like Hillsong, and they play songs from these well-known, highly acclaimed groups.
Mm-hmm.
Elevation Worship. You can go down the list. I think each one of them, all three that I've named, all have a song about dancing. I know Bethel does because they have a song. Maybe it's not Bethel. There's a song called We Dance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's Bethel. Could be wrong. Yet churches are singing these songs of worship. We dance, but we are not allowed to.
Yeah.
That's kind of hypocritical in my opinion. And I'm not saying that church is hypocritical, but I am.
It's always been not from the very beginning, but you know what I mean. As long as there are human beings in the church, there's going to be hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
Paul had to call Peter out on him being a hypocrite.
Absolutely.
So it really has been there. As long as people have been sinful, there has been hypocrisy within the church.
Absolutely. And it's just it baffles me to stand in a church, because I've been in several where it's like, we don't know how we feel about dancing. And I hate to say it, but the church we attended a long time ago, won't say which one.
Very much that way.
When I brought up dancing to them, the pastor was not okay with the idea of them actually dancing on Sunday.
Yeah.
Was not okay with it.
It was okay for Wednesday church,
it
which
was
you
perfectly
did.
fine. And we did it once, and that was, really fun, and it was beautiful, but I was told by the pastor that unless it was an incredible, performed in other churches company, children were not to dance.
Yeah.
And we were not to dance at Sunday school or during Sunday worship.
Worship.
And for me, I'm sitting there and I'm like, why? Why? I've been doing this for years. I've been dancing for years. And unless it was Ballet Magnificat coming through those doors, you're not going to let... Because they're, you know, for those who don't know, Ballet Mag is a very highly acclaimed Christian dance company in Mississippi. It's been around for a long time. But why? We're gonna preach worship. We're gonna preach on you know, singing and dancing. But yet, my kids that have been practicing a worship dance because that's how they worship. That's how they want to express themselves. We're not allowed to do it. I was fearful of standing out in the aisle dancing at church, at that particular church, because I didn't know what the pastor was going to say, what the elders were going to say, because I knew that even though that was a Christian church, that was a non-denominational church, dancing was still looked down upon.
Yep.
And it made me very angry.
Yep.
And it made me, you know, and it makes, and I don't want to say I resent the church, but it makes me resentful towards the church for saying, oh, you can sing, you can play instruments, you can paint, you can act, you can do this, but you have to be in these confined, you know, first off, you have to be in this confined box. But dancing, no. And I pull up scripture, I'm like, but they danced. But they danced.
But then on the flip side of it, they'll show music videos of dancing. So that's okay.
Yes, and we'll show cultural people, you know, cultural videos of people dancing. And I'm like, but we can't do this here in America, and we can't do this here in our own...
Because those guys are pagans when we're reaching out to these poor backward pagans. But it looks kind of cool, so we'll put it in the video.
Right, but then that shows me as a you know, avid mission, you know, I work for missions in Houston, and I'm, fun fact, I don't know if I've told you guys this, I'm supposed to be going to Austria in April for a dance mission trip, but that shows me that, like, my work is just... oh, we're just reaching outward. We're just tilling the ground, and then we're going to come in later and plant the seeds. Dance is a universal language. Why are we not utilizing it more? You know, it baffles me that the church is so against dancing. It baffles me that they're so against acting on a more professional level, and it baffles me that they're against filmmaking on a more professional level, because how else are we supposed to reach the people that we are trying to reach with love, kindness, and grace? Reach them at their medium. Like, I've reached more gay, LGBT, you know, people in dancing, because that's a community that I'm so in, because dancing has that high LGBT community. I've reached more people and had more conversations about God with these people than I have had with anybody else in the church. There's my medium right there. There's my outreach group. There's my community. I can do that, and I'm not doing that in the church.
I guess one way of putting it is, if you were building a house, why would you take away a hammer?
Thank you. I'm getting fired up now. My water. This is what happens. I'm on a roll now. But it's true. Like, why? Like, I have tattoos. And that's frowned upon in the church. I have tattoos. And my first argument is, why separate myself from a community of people that need Jesus just as equally as you and I? I can't go up to somebody who has tattoos. Now, that's not the main reason I have tattoos, but it's definitely a ministry tool. You know? I can't go up to somebody and be like, oh, I like your tattoos. Let me talk to you about tattoos, and not have one. That's like having a tattoo artist tattoo you and not have a tattoo on them. Would not do that. I'm sorry. No. You don't have a tattoo. But that's like having a dance teacher walk into a class and say, I've never taken a dance class in my life. I'm sorry. No. No. And that's what, no offense, and I want to be very respectful, but that right there is what Christian dance is.
Yep.
It's non-dancing people going in and saying, I'm going to teach a dance class. No! I'm sorry. You're going to teach a creative movement class to teenagers with flags and make them wear turtlenecks and long sleeve shirts and pants.
And make them pass out from heat exhaustion on a hot day.
Exactly. And then have flags. Like, no offense, I think flags are some powerful tools in dance worship. But is it necessary all the time? No. Anyway, so I have tattoos, and I use it as a ministry tool. I get to have conversations where people are like, oh, do you have any? I'm like, yeah, I have 3. Let me tell you what each of them mean to me. There's me inserting the gospel into somebody's life without having to say, I'm a Christian, let me tell you about Jesus, and go door to door and say, you need to know Jesus or you're going to hell. I don't have to say that. I can say, I have this tattoo on my wrist because every time I look at it or play guitar or use my lower dominant hand, my weaker hand, I remember that Christ is my strength and he will get me through it. So let me put that on my left hand, my non-dominant arm, my non-dominant hand. Every time I look at my rib cage, just close to my heart, I remember that Christ is the center of my life and my love. And I look at my bird and like, his eye's on sparrows, so surely he's watching me. Mm-hmm. Like, I get to tell these to people, that's who I'm ministering to. And I'm sorry, if I'm not allowed to do my dancing in the church, I have more success talking to people and seeing people get saved out on the streets of Atlanta dancing that's unacceptable in the church, and I reach more people. I've done it. I've seen it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to be as humble as possible, but I've seen salvation on the streets where it's doing what's unacceptable and what's secular and what's sinful. Fun fact, my job and my work has probably assisted, and I'm not saying me personally, but I've seen more success stories and I've heard more success stories of people coming to Christ through watching someone dance than going to a church and seeing someone on the pulpit. I said it, I am holding to it. Boom. If you edit it, it's fine, but I said it.
Well,
I'm not gonna edit it.
It's great. But like, no, I know I'm just saying, like, if that's too blunt, it's too, like, I get it, but it's the truth. More people are being saved through the arts and through the
Don't emphasize by slapping your foot.
Oh, sorry.
Because I can hear that.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. I get fired. More people are getting saved through the arts and through the things that are being watered down to a lukewarm situation than the fired up pastors that we see nationwide.
Well, and I'm going to backtrack a little bit to your tattoos. People want to always sit there and say, well, you need to treat your body like a temple. Well, last I checked, the temple had wonderful works in them. Statues.
Preach, John, preach.
Well, why? Because people do connect with artwork like you were saying.
Yeah.
Also, I'm trying to remember where I was. You said something I was going to go on a different trail with it, and now I can't remember it, but...
I can go back. It's fine. I can reiterate all of this.
I mean, I have an idea, but I never know when to jump in.
Go.
I'll go for it.
That's,
Okay.
that's perfect time.
No,
You remember,
I'm
raise
not-
your hand.
yeah,
I'll stop. I'll always stop.
I'm not so much playing devil's advocate here as I am maybe explaining what I've interpreted as the church's negative reaction to tattoos.
Yeah, go for it.
It's because of the history of what tattoos have been in the long past as well as the current present.
Yeah.
Particularly in that tattoos were, as far as I can tell, primarily used in pagan worship.
Absolutely.
And particularly, I know this isn't the same as, like, straight up tattooing your body, but,
Yeah.
like, we have on Mount Carmel with Elijah and the freaking billion priests of Baal, and they're literally taking knives and just, hey-oh, cutting myself up here like a rotisserie chicken. And like I said, I know it's not the same thing, but it's still a kind of body modification.
Absolutely.
And so for ages, body modification has been seen by the church as directly connected to devil worship.
Absolutely.
Which, I mean, is understandable,
Absolutely.
unfortunately. But because of, like, I'm still trying to make up my own mind about a lot of things. Just
Yeah.
because I see people, like, okay, yes, there are a lot of people who have tattoos, and some of them are just, like, ugh, you know?
Right.
And,
But then I see a lot of people with tattoos, like our friend from the homeless ministry, whose name I'm totally blanking on.
What's up, Beck? Shout out.
Thank you! And of course you, Olivia. I'm seeing people with tattoos that are meaningful and representative of something, and that when they see it and when they show them to other people, they are reminded of these things. And there's a part of me that's like I kind of would want one, but at the same time it's like, where would I put it? What would I do with it? So at the moment I'm just kind of like, you know, but that's why I'm sort of, I don't want to say I'm on the fence about it, but I can understand where this is coming from. And why I think we have to be patient with certain generations, just because, like, people in my own family, for example, I've been told that they only knew sailors as having tattoos.
Right.
So tattoos were directly, you know, in line with guys with naked chicks on their muscles. There's like, look, I can make them move.
Right.
So, you know, that's kind of been, I don't want to say my understanding, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And it's like, I put this in my notes that part of the problem in the arts is that the arts only come with a flourishing civilization. And we have been flourishing for maybe, 300 years-ish now. And so we have all these different forms of artwork. We kind of don't know what to do with them.
Right.
You know, because for a while it's like, if the church is in survival mode, it's like, this is new, we're still trying to survive. Well, now we're flourishing. Ish, I should say. We have a flourishing civilization. I don't think of the church as flourishing.
No.
You know.
The church is currently in decline, but I think that's largely
massively.
because they're not going to people where they're at, like Jesus did. Jesus went to the tax collector. He didn't have the tax collector come to him. He went to the tax collector, which was the lowest of the low back then.
And I mean, I know this is kind of random, but I really, really wish in the Bible it specifically mentioned that Jesus spoke with people who were on the LGBTQ spectrum, because it's like, we know he did.
Right,
But, like,
it was there.
I wish they mentioned it in the Bible. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And I think I'm going to touch on the topic really quick about not going to where the need is. And I think it's really, really appropriate to mention that we have titled this podcast Called to the Table, because we're reaching out to call people in. We're not saying, oh, join us at the table, or like, oh, we expect you to be here at the table.
And we're already at the table.
Well,
no, we're not.
No, we actually changed the name, because the original name we came up with was Come to the Table, and we didn't like it. We said that it not that it sounded better, but we felt it was more like we were called to the table, and that we are calling people to join us and to listen, and we are going to go out and do as we are called to do. But yeah, we actually changed the title, because it was originally we were going to do Come to the Table, and we didn't like that.
And the funny thing is, we're not even using a table right now. We're using a nightstand.
Right. But I think what's really like a very important point that I want to again touch on what you said was going to the masses, meeting people where they're at. The church has become so complacent in come to us and we'll teach you what you need to know, you know. And that's what I really love about one of my jobs is the motto behind it is bring, build, send. They bring in people, build them up, send them out. And I love that. And it's important, because if we constantly are saying, come to the church, you'll get fed. Okay, but what about the people who can't go to the church? What about the people who don't know what the church is? Like, we're excluding all those people. And we're allowing, and I don't mean to say this in a sense that I'm opposing you, Caroline. I'm saying this in a sense of, it's a term that I've been finding myself use more and more. I'm done with making excuses for older generations. No offense to older generations listening, but I'm done with making excuses for them.
No, I get that, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for them, as I am saying that we have to. There's a difference between making an excuse and then being mindful and saying we're going to change that. Right,
and that's why I don't want you to think, because I'm not saying that's what you're saying.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm going to say, for those of you listening out there, please understand where I'm coming from with this. I am on Tumblr. And as I am on Tumblr, I meet, it's not so much people, but a lot of different anonymous opinions. Yeah. And I feel like that's helped me understand the youth
of, and I hate using that word because we're youth,
Mm-hmm.
but but
The young people, I hate
yeah,
that.
I hate those words too. But like, what are we supposed to call ourselves? I don't want to call us millennials. We are millennials, but whatever. The people who are adults, we don't.
I deny my millennialism.
Adults,
Elder millennial.
we're adults
Elder.
that are not super adults yet. We're not adult plus. Anyway, and I'm seeing where they are in the world and what they want out of things and how they want the older generation to come to them with understanding and how we shouldn't excuse the older generation. But I do believe there has to be an element of kindness as well as like holding them accountable while at the same time going, it's kind of like this great post somebody was making about how sometimes people identify with villains in stories, but we have to also say, cool motive, it's still murder.
Exactly.
So, like, okay, we get your upbringing, but we don't need to stay in that place.
Right.
Understanding, but accountability.
And that leads me to my follow-up is I'm done making excuses for the older generation, but that in equal sense, I'm tired of making excuses for our generations and the younger generations.
Preach.
Why are we making excuses for all parties? Like,
Preach.
and this is a big political issue right now, but I'm going to say it anyways as an example. LGBT community is greatly opposed to the Christian community. That's both sides' fault. Because we've made excuses for the Christian community, but we've also made excuses for the LGBT community. And vice versa. Like, the Christian community has such a hard time with LGBT community. We've been making excuses for generation after generation after generation. We continue to make excuses. Well, that's just how they are. Well, they oppose us, so they don't like us. Like, they're against what we believe, so they're the enemy. No, that's an excuse. And I'm tired of these excuses. I'm tired of saying, well, the excuse of the church is generational. Well, it's also, it's our fault. Like, it's our fault for not upholding the honor and the integrity of dancing and the integrity of arts to prove to the church that it deserves to be in the church. You know, it's an all-encompassing, there's excuses, and we just need to, like, break those excuses down and come humbly and say, let's try again.
You were going to say, Jordan?
No, I was going to say, because Liv touched on something, talking about how we need to be doing this with integrity and stuff. For those listening who may be in our situation or may have a leadership role in the church, and for us, as we are sitting there and not changing our own church, but, making movements within our own churches, how does that look like? What does that look like where we are doing maybe not kid-friendly or family-friendly, whatever, but still maintaining, and Liv, this is a big thing for you, of maintaining excellence as well as keeping that integrity. What advice, and we can go around the table, I guess, for everybody, and this would be a great way to end it because this is how we started it. How do you do that? How moving forward, what does that look like?
So we're talking about the integrity, maintaining integrity. And, okay. We do have notes for these. So.
Well, I don't. They're in my brain. My notes are in my brain because I'm smart. I was homeschooled. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Personally, and I try to do this every single day because I am a dance teacher and I preach excellence with integrity. So it's my, and like, of course I stumble and I'm human, but it's my goal in life to prove that both can happen. And I think it's just being completely truthful and honest with who you are and being completely truthful and honest with your intentions and your expectations. And it's communication all the way. Like, it's definitely, I find a different atmosphere in my classroom when I express my expectations right off the bat, that I truly see these kids as who they are. I truly see them for what they bring to the table and what they, what their 100% can be every single day. But how does that match my 100% that I'm giving them in the excellence and the expectations that I'm expecting from them? And how does that match? And someone very wise told me, and I'm going to use it. It's like if I gave my student $100 bill, and they just crumbled it up and threw it on the trash, on the ground or in the trash. They're not utilizing the $100 that I have given them as a gift or have supplied them to benefit themselves in their life. And that's what I say about my teaching. If I'm giving you everything I've got to my DJing, and I'm giving you my 100%, and you're not matching me with 100%, and you're only giving me 50, you know, now I'm having to fill that gap. So really I'm not giving you 100% because I can't give more than 100. I'm now giving 150, which is really half of what I can give. You know, it's showing them that balance of you can give everything you can to your craft, to your art, to your job, whatever, and not lose who you are by being truthful, by being excellent, by keeping your integrity, but being open and honest and, you know, just being who you are. It was a long-winded one, sorry.
Johnny G.
It's okay. You've taken over most of the conversation.
I'm sorry.
I mean, this is
gonna
something you're very
happen.
passionate about, and we've been letting you have center stage.
It's
Nice dance pun. Really bad movie. Horrible movie.
But I mean,
Suck too.
going along with this, and this is something that Jordan and I talked about, so
Yep.
she's going to be very mad at me that I'm going first.
Thanks.
But it needs to be age appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, no, you're not going to take a 5-year-old to see something like...
Passion of the Christ.
We actually talked about that.
Yeah, that was something we talked about. But you may take them to, say, Facing the Giants.
Yeah.
Also, going from, you know, I am trying to learn to weld. With merging those two, there, just like in welding, there is going to be a lot of heat involved to make them mesh.
Yeah.
It's going to be friction. There's going to be melting
the
down.
puns.
Yes.
The puns.
So the puns.
You're going to have some resistance if the metals don't
Oh.
work.
So, I mean,
I get it.
it's going to take some time, and it's going to take somebody who is not afraid of the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, going again, you know, John hit on the fact that we talked about it, and he hit on the age appropriate. But I'm gonna go more with that. I think again, coming from a drama background and I grew up going to Christian schools. Everything was very much the kind of kid, whatever. I think in order to maintain excellence and integrity, is you sit there and from the get-go, if you are trying to, you know, build a drama team or whatever, there are mega churches out there there's one in Chicago that is absolutely phenomenal with this. They have a huge drama team. They have a huge outreach for it because they understand that if they're putting something on for the adults, that it needs to be for the adults. You know, they may sit there and say, you know, normally we're okay with having kids in the auditorium. For this particular church service, we prefer them be out of the auditorium. And I think being able to be open and honest with your church leaders and saying, this is what I feel like would really benefit our church, but we need to make sure that if we're doing something for the whole family, that we're reaching the whole family. But if we're doing something that's addressing divorce or abuse or, you know, whatever else, we need to make sure that it's just for the adults. Or if we're doing something like human trafficking, that's for adults and teenagers. Like, being able to set the tone specifically for what the performance is. And
Right.
I think, yeah, and I think, you know, and going with what John was saying about the resistance, maybe initially that's not necessarily on Sunday morning. Maybe you do that in the evening one night of having just a whole performance of dancing and arts and, you know, whatever else. Or you do it on a Wednesday night church specifically for the teens, or, you know, whatever else. But you start with that. Again, Liv, what you're saying about being yourself, but keeping that open and honest communication of what is expected and what is needed, I think is a huge thing of being able to keep that. And as long as that continues, because as soon as you cut that off, what's going to happen is there's going to be regression, and it's going to go back to the whole kiddie, you know, kid-friendly, family-friendly, whatever. And I think that's a big thing, is keeping that.
Yes, that song is good.
The amount of times I've had to choreograph to that song.
For real?
Hate it.
That's the reason I knew that had to be that.
I'm not joking. The amount of times that I've been limited to just, like, only allowed to do hymns or, you know, and I've never done a hymn with words before this past year. I pushed myself to do Old Rugged Cross, and I've challenged myself to make these more conservative church pieces with an abstract feel by utilizing different music and stuff. But I pushed myself to do an but pre-professional piece of choreography with gram-based technique to a hymn, turned out to be one of my favorite pieces I've ever done. But the Jesus Love Me one, yeah, I've done that one a million times. So tired of it.
Mini rant by Liv. All right, Carolyn.
So,
It should be a segment.
yeah, so no, I'm going to have a little mini rant now because I think it's been pretty well established that Liv is our dance and Jordan is our drama and John
He's just
is
there.
the welder.
I'm the odd man out.
He's just a personality.
He's not artsy.
Sparkling
Nah.
personality.
Just kidding.
But I come from art, writing, and music. And I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I'm not really I am truly a master of none, but I still love it. Doesn't stop me from actually doing it. I did not know what I wanted to be when I went to college. And so I was like, oh my word, they have an animation program at the university that I'm going to go to. Well, let's just jump into that, shall we? Because, I mean, that combines writing and art, right? It was art boot camp. I mean, like, I learned a lot, and it was good. But the reason why I bring it up is because talking about integrity and excellence in a field, I went to a Christian university, and I'm not sure if it was just because of budget or they didn't feel like they were getting the feedback or the support from the church at large or what, but it just felt like they were doing real mediocre stuff. And the one really big project that I thought they were going to actually go out and do just kind of fell apart. Like, I mean, all of the concept art for it just disappeared, and it was going to be something on the life of Christ. And what they had so far was beautiful because, so I went to Southern Adventist University, and we have a professor there who is a professional Disney animator, was in the business 4 years. He also, did he straight up direct Fantasia 2000? Anyway, Hindel Butoy. Amazing guy. Showed us some of the original stills from Rescuers Down Under. He animated the eagle. Like, incredible artwork. He was going to head the Life of Christ thing. And it just sort of vanished and disappeared. And I was like, what's going on here? Why aren't we encouraging people to put out this quality? Like, is it because of the lack of support? Is it because of the lack of interest? I mean, it was just a mystery to me because this thing was going to be so awesome. And on top of that, like, I've seen some finished stuff from my church. My denomination is Seventh-day Adventist. I chose to stay Adventist just because I did my own research and stuff. But anyway, there's some of my uniqueness right here. Anyway, some of the stuff put out by my church, visually for like movies and stuff, it's not bad. It could be better. And I'm not sure if it's budget or if it's prejudice, but there was this really, really cool music video they put out that shows the continuing work of Christ, and they do use 3D animation for some of it. And I knew one of the animators, and I kind of heard this secondhand, but she was talking to one of her friends, like, the 3D modeling for Christ sucked. Like, I am embarrassed to put this out. This looks awful. And, I mean, like I said, I know I'm not 100%. It didn't look awful to me, but if she said that it was awful, that meant that she knew they could do even better. And here I am going, why? Why are we not doing even better? Because we have the technology. We have... I mean, I would think we would have the budget. Like, we should be pouring more of our soul into this. Like, it does reach people. There are, I mean, particularly people like us. Mm-hmm. We were practically raised by cartoons. SpongeBob is practically an internet cult because we can quote episodes.
I mean, practically, it is an internet cult.
Anyway.
And I'm the odd man out that didn't watch it.
Yes, I know, so all of my references fall on deaf ears. Anyway, what I'm saying is we shouldn't be afraid to step up to the plate, individually as well as collectively, because so many people would relate to all of this. We're not making things... We're not making idols to worship. There's a big difference between the internet
the internet. the internet and the entertainment. I can't talk today. The entertainment industry at large and what the church is capable of doing. We don't need to be worried about, oh no, if we make it good, that somehow makes us bad and evil, because it doesn't. It means that we're putting forth quality work.
Yes.
It means that people will actually listen to what we have to say because they see that we're giving our all for it.
Yes.
We're not suddenly Sodom and Gomorrah because our animation doesn't look like crap.
Yes.
I mean, there are, I cannot tell you, the secular people that I see on Tumblr still remember VeggieTales and they love it. I mean, there are people that are like, the only Christian thing I stan is VeggieTales.
Because it was
That's
good.
gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
And that, I know that was aimed at children, but these two crazy guys with horrible senses of humor wrote it so that way even adults would enjoy it.
Yep.
That's where we have to go. We have to hold ourselves to that higher standard and not be afraid of others thinking that we're being like the world when clearly that's not our goal.
Right.
Even if we have to sound like a broken record saying over and over again, this is what we are. Come look at what we are doing. Come fact check us if you want to.
Yes.
You know? And if we show people that we are taking things right from the Bible, right from history, you know, a lot of what is keeping us from doing these things is fear. It's fear. Yep. This has been like the common thing that I've heard from everybody.
Yep.
Everyone's so afraid that we're going to somehow get it wrong and that, oh no, everything's going to, you know, and I can relate to that because I'm a perfectionist. That's what kept me from doing a whole mess of stuff for so many years is fear. Well, I'm doing a podcast now and I'm afraid of it, but I'm still doing it. So, you know, that's...
We're
I feel
holding
like,
her hostage on this.
Yeah.
We have a gun to her head.
All the rattling
That's
around
not
you hear is
true.
my chains.
That's not true. Unless you count fingers.
I mean, yeah, we had the finger guns at her.
There you go.
Yeah, Jordan and her sharp nails. Oh, it's gonna hurt so bad.
But one thing that, you know, people purposely dumbing it down or purposely making it worse, kind of like how the Amish will go and like make a nook in their furniture that they make to where they purposely know it's not perfect.
Like, I can understand that, but to me there's a difference between we have made this thing as high quality as possible, but left just a small defect to acknowledge that God is the true perfect maker of everything, versus, oh, we have to make this really crappy or else people will think we're like the world. It's like, that's not how it works.
Right, that's ridiculous.
I mean, Christian writers, Christian musicians, they are really the only true fields I'm seeing where they're just flat out giving it all, whether or not the world is actually listening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Artists, I mean, I know really only a handful of what I would consider excellent Christian artists because they are using all of the things available to them and they're going straight from the Bible, straight from real life experiences. But, like, just go for it.
Yeah, in dance, I can't tell you the 3 years that I was at ADM, we go to different places, like hospitals and children's centers, and we get told we would like songs that do not have the word God, Jesus, or Holy Spirit in it, and we would succumb to that, and it would make me mad every single time. Why? You're hiring us to come and dance.
We are a Christian
It's
dance
a choice.
company. You should expect that.
Exactly, and you're telling us we can't do that.
This
and then
isn't
my
separation of
director
church and state.
would do it. Like, my director would do it. And that's one of the areas that I had an issue in. I'm like, but why? Like, we have a piece called His Eye is on the Sparrow. We were not allowed to use words. We had pieces, Come Thou Fount. We had hymns that we would do. Weren't allowed to use the songs. Why? Because they had the word God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit in it. But we still did it. And that made me mad. Like, I don't see anyone else apologizing for speaking out the truth.
I mean, what I don't understand is if people want diversity, then why don't they just have diversity?
Yep.
Like, have a Christian group, have a Jewish group come and do, you know, different holiday traditions. I mean, if they do have a high Muslim population, have them come in and show off their holiday traditions as well. Like, there's nothing stopping people from doing that sort of thing. Why don't they just do it?
Yeah.
Instead, they force everybody to shut up because they're afraid of offending other people.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, cancel culture. And
that is a lot of what's killing, to get back to the point, integrity and excellence.
I agree. Well, y'all, we're done. Liv, you want to give the listeners a way that they can get in contact with us if they want to fact check us or
Yeah, or if you have any
or any sponsors who may want to try to support us. I mean,
yeah, we have an email address you can go to. It's calledtothetable@gmail.com, all lowercase. You can come check us out or send us an email. We also have our Instagram, which is Called to the Table Pod. On Instagram, no underscores, just one solid go across. And there it's an open Instagram, so you can leave a comment, you can direct message us. And I know that in the future we're gonna want to do like podcasts with your questions and comments, and that's a great place to do it. I will collect the ones that I feel are appropriate. Like if you are DMing us and it's not appropriate, I'm not keeping it.
I mean, no duh, but anyway.
But start now.
Yeah, start going on now, because then, who knows, the next recording session that we have, we can pop one of those in there and answer some of your questions. But yeah, that's, and we will be on Facebook as well, Called to the Table Pod as well. So.
Awesome.
All right, well, John, lead us out.
I mean, I would have let us out with something like that, but since we had Olivia do that.
Our notes say that you do the outro.
Well, I know that.
Well, I had
up with
Olivia
something.
do the social media because that is her department.
Yeah.
Is social media.
Yeah.
So she got to be the
I'm
bragger.
the social media
So come on,
leader.
Mr. Personality, do the outro.
Thank you for listening to all of us goofballs over here talk about and rant on this particular subject. And please subscribe and let everybody know that you know about this, because we would love to let this be heard across the entire world.
It's okay, folks. He's trying. We'll get better. we'll get better, we promise.
Thanks for that look, Olivia.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.